Welcome to the VBAC Home Birth Stories podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, founder of the Motherhood Circle and creator of the Journey into Motherhood program. I'm a mother of two and have had two unplanned and unneeded C-sections and am planning my first home and vaginal birth. My own journey has sparked a deep passion to support women to find their own voice and strength to create the pregnancy, birth and motherhood experience you desire. This podcast is for women wanting to learn more about VBACs, especially home births, and for professionals who want to learn more about how to support VBAC home birthing women. Inside, we're going to share women's stories from surgical birth to achieving their vaginal home birth after cesarean. Now let's get started. Hi April, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm really excited to share your story, and I've been blessed and lucky enough to see your beautiful baby. So thank you so much for coming on. You're my third guest on the show, which is really exciting. Please share a little bit about yourself and your family.
Oh, thank you for having me. My name's April and I'm 27 and this is my second baby. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old, and this baby, my first is a cesarean, this baby's a home birth, and it was beautiful, healing experience.
And we can hear little baby in the background too.
Yeah, babies sound a bit distracted at times, that's why.
So cute. Oh, we love babies. Awesome. Well, I think if we can start off at your first pregnancy and, your first birth and go from there.
Yeah. So my first birth with my now 2.5-year-old, I was in the army at the time, and they put you into a private hospital there wasn't much thought in it, but that's just what happens. That's just what was the process. So I went to a private hospital here I'm living in Brisbane. And I went into the pregnancy. I had a really early miscarriage before that, so I was quite anxious to start with, and just sort of didn't have any trust that my body could build a baby. So I grew up in a sort of a town that is a little bit alternate, so I sort of had that way of thinking, but then my life had gone other ways. Mm-hmm. So I had these questions, I wanted to know about delayed cord clamping, and I wanted to, I wanted a natural birth and all that sort of stuff. But I suppose I was very easily persuaded. So I went into my first obstetrician appointment and was pretty much laughed at for all my questions. And I feel that just sort of degraded my confidence right from the beginning.
Because when you go to a private hospital here in Australia, it means that your primary carer is an obstetrician, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And you were laughed at for asking questions.
Yeah, just for, asking, I suppose, just asking questions about, delayed cord clamping and just things like that. About how I wanted the delivery to go and about writing a birth plan and stuff like that. And, it was just all laughed off and the birth will just happen, and there's no point thinking about it too much because it's just going to happen how it's going to happen. So
that's really disempowering, isn't it, to have, you're going there trying to seek answers and trying to plan and get it in your mind, and then you're being told that, which is really hard.
Yeah, it was really hard, but I suppose at the time I didn't think about it too much. I was very easily persuaded, as I just said. I just kind of went along with it, and everyone told me that he was a really good doctor and all this, so I thought, I'm just going to trust it. Mm-hmm. And I still really enjoyed my pregnancy. I love being pregnant. I'm one of those people, and so I loved my pregnancy and loved feeling my baby grow, I just didn't feel empowered through my pregnancy, and just always fearful, every time I went to an appointment, it was You know, there was an ultrasound machine in the room, so he just checked. But that gave me fear. Every time I went, I thought, oh, maybe this is the time that, you know, he's going to check and there's going to be something wrong. So just you know, went into the birth not trusting my body, and then but wanting a natural birth and just thinking it was going to work out for me. But yeah, that when 39 weeks come along, I went for an appointment, and he just did a stretch and sweep, which wasn't, I didn't know what it was. Didn't consent to it. He just said he was going to check my cervix, and then he put his finger up there. Yeah, which was really painful. And again, at the time, I didn't think much of it. It's only until I've reflected and learnt later on that now I am very angry about that. Yeah, so that happened. And then, yeah, just about 3 or 4 days later, I started experiencing mild cramps at about, I had a leak in the night. So I was about 39 in a few days, and I had a little leak at about 7 in the night, and I thought, oh, I think this is happening. And I went to bed, and then overnight I started getting mild surges. And, and then I just was so excited, you know, like couldn't sleep much, so excited, you know, got up preparing the baby room and all this. And then as soon as it was a acceptable time, we called the hospital. I was like, I need to come in and get checked, you know, make sure my that, you know, what's happening, is this my waters? So we went in, and they're like, yeah, it's your waters, just wait for the day. So just pretty much just exhausted myself that day by we went out for brunch, and we were all both so excited, and just feeling the surges come and go, and then eventually that afternoon they started actually picking up, and I was already mentally and physically exhausted. But we stayed at home for, I think we went in again at about 5, and they checked everything, and everything was fine, because I was starting to get doubts come in whether everything was fine. And then we got home, and then it really started kicking off. And so stayed at home for probably about 5 hours, labouring in the lounge room. And I was just so scared, you know, it was so intense. I had done no emotional work throughout the pregnancy, preparing for the intensity. That sounds a lot like I'm blaming myself, but also, you know, I just didn't, I didn't have anybody there. It was just me and my husband.
And pretty much, you know, because that's what your doctor had also told you, that birth is just birth and you'll just go along with it. Yeah. There was no, you know, talking about any positive birthing courses or books or anything, or having these conversations with you so you would feel more empowered and ready for what was going to come.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there was nothing like that. And and I just didn't have exposure to that. So then when it all happened, it was just very intense, had no emotional support other than Adam, who tried his best, but he was also scared. So just the fears started, you know, bubbling up, and, you know, and now that I know more about birth, you know, the fears started coming up, which I now know that, you know, intensified my pain and all that. So went into labour, I went into the hospital very distraught at about 10 or 11, and the midwife there pretty much told me that my only option was having an epidural. And that's what you were saying before, like I hadn't, until I actually went into early labour, I thought, I've never even met these midwives, like the doctor's not going to be there. That was a bit of a thing to realise right when you're in labour. Got there, pretty much felt that a epidural was the only option. I was, and I hate this wording, but this is how I thought of it at the time, I was only 2 centimetres dilated. Just very disheartened by that. And
And they still admitted you, and they wanted you to have an epidural straight away.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So that happened. Epidural at about 12. Broke my waters properly.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit after that. And then, as much as I know about it now, and, I know what I feel went wrong, but at the time I really enjoyed it. I sat there and I watched my baby's heart rate on the monitor, and I was so excited because I was going to beat my baby soon. And I could, wasn't experiencing any pain. I was just was feeling the tightenings with my hands pretty much. So I was stuck on my back all night. They said I should sleep, but that obviously didn't happen. And and then conveniently at about 7, I think they put up the oxytocin, or whatever you call it,
mm-hmm.
to get the labour going, because I was at about 7 centimetres, I think. And then the classic, the baby's heart rate started to have little G cells and stuff, and then the epidural started to wear off, and the pain was so intense that I didn't have all the hormones going, and then they checked, and I was at about 9 centimetres, and then they just kept checking, and I wasn't progressing past that.
Mm-hmm.
So they just said, the baby's stuck, and this is the doctor checking. The baby's stuck, we're going to have a cesarean. And then about an hour and a half later, because it must have been a real hurry, the baby, my first baby was born. And it was so intense. And I had this beautiful midwife that would come in the morning, and I just remember her saying to me, a lot of things are going to happen really quickly. And she was so supportive, and she was beautiful, and I really remember her support. But it was I was just devastated that this was happening, and devastated and just crying, and I thought that I'm so grateful that I was awake for the cesarean. I wasn't unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So they put in the spinal and got on the table, and they cut out my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she was put, after they did all their measurements and stuff, she was put on my chest in recovery straight away, breastfed and all that. So that was all, as complicated free as that can go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for that. But it definitely wasn't how I envisioned my birth going, and there was a lot of emotions involved. So that's my first birth.
And so at some point, really not too far in the distance, you decided to have another baby, or another baby arrived in your womb. And then you had to decide, what you were going to do with this birth and this pregnancy.
Yes, I did. But actually I made that decision a long time before I got blessed with this next baby.
Sure.
So I think it was about my 6-week appointment. I was still under the impression, I was just like, no, I was trying to just keep the mindset of this had to happen mindset. But then it couldn't be ignored for any longer. And I started the journey of learning about birth in our culture and how that would have affected my birth. So that happened, and I just was devastated that I didn't have many options as a VBAC woman in hospitals. Couldn't go through birth centres or anything like that, or would have to fight to not have continuous monitoring and all that.
How did you find out that was going to be the case?
I'm just trying to think back. It seems like such common knowledge to me now. I can't remember when I realised that. I think it might have, I think I read Birthing from Within, a lot of Ina May Gaskin's, is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
Book, and also Dr. Sarah Buckley's book.
Yeah, all the best books. Yeah,
all the best books.
Yeah.
I read all them, and that was devastating, because I thought, why didn't I read these when I was pregnant? But yeah, obviously has turned out to be so empowering.
Yeah.
And burpees. Yeah, so at some point in that journey, I think my first was about 6 months old, I decided to go and meet up with some independent midwives who had like a 1 monthly gathering thing, and I just spoke to them about what happened and whether I would be able to go through them in the future to have a waterbirth, home birth, VBAC. And I just felt like I'd met my people. Like, it was just so supportive and so empowering, and I just felt so amazing after seeing them, that it pretty much, I felt like that was kind of the healing journey always continues, but I feel like I kind of let it go after that. I enjoyed my baby, and I just thought, next time this happens, I'm gonna do it so differently, because I felt that I had options to explore. Yeah, so then when I found out I was pregnant for a second time, which was 2 years after my cesarean, so I had the vaginal birth 2.5 years after I had the cesarean, I made contact with the independent midwives again, and and should I say names or not?
Are you happy to share? Because I think that people who are, in Brisbane area or wherever you were at this point in time would love to reach out to these people who supported you, because I know the support for VBAC home birth is not so available across the country and across the world.
Yeah,
I'm happy for you to share.
Yeah, so I'm aware of like a handful of independent midwives in Brisbane.
Who did you go with?
I went through Georgina Kelly.
Okay.
And I had Mayette Pearson, I believe her last name is. She's part of It Takes a Midwifery. It Takes a Village Midwifery. Yes,
she's a beautiful midwife, isn't she, Mayette?
Oh my God, she's gorgeous. Yeah, so she's the second midwife.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I connected with Mayette, and she was full, because she's always full. So she's already full for the rest of the year. Yeah.
I've seen. And they're taking bookings for January.
I know. I feel like they take bookings like post 9 months. People must be like, I'm going to ovulate now.
Yeah, book me in. I have heard, like, as soon as you get pregnant, you got to call them, because they just book up.
Yeah. But I'm so grateful. I love the midwife that I went through, Georgina. She's
great.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that it worked out that way, and I got to have her as my midwife. And she lives so close, so it was so easy and just worked. So when I met up with Georgina just at a cafe, and we got to know each other when I was only about 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. So that was beautiful. And then after that, we just did the usual midwife thing. So she came to my house, and like monthly for a while, and then 2 weekly, and then weekly towards the end. And so it was just the most amazing experience of being pregnant. Like, she just her questions and just her manner, and it was just all made you look within instead of external, and just such a constant source of like just wisdom and just like empowerment. Like, she's just I just felt so empowered to make this the journey I wanted, and just to to voice my fears to her. Like, it wasn't all like you have to think positive all the time, and to make this happen. Like, it was about facing those fears and working through them in pregnancy and really feeling the depth of all the emotions that come with being pregnant and planning a VBAC.
Yeah, especially after a VBAC, and it's so important to have that emotional support and someone building you up.
Yes.
Which it sounds like you had.
Yes, it was so nice. It was so nice in a pregnancy and birth sense that I just feel like I got so much out of it just, like for my life, like life. So it's just part of that journey, like it's not separate from my life. And so yeah, it was really treated as a sacred thing and as a rite of passage, and and all the choices were mine. And I forgot that I was VBAC, really. Like I forgot until there was a point at about 32 weeks where it definitely was still my decision, but in the plan for independent midwives, they ask that because you still book into a hospital, and so they ask that you go and visit the hospital.
Yeah, it's part of what they have to do is their guideline to continue practicing that way. Yeah,
that's right. So I did that. That was the first contact I'd had, and but that was literally the only contact I had with any sort of public, just any sort of hospital or anything. So I kind of just forgot I was VBAC, really, which was cool. I started seeing a midwife weekly towards the end of the pregnancy, and towards the end of I think I dealt with the most fears come up around mid pregnancy, and then towards the end I started just really getting into that flow state of being so pregnant and so many hormones, and just feeling pretty chill about it, really. And then at about 40 and a few days, I started to go into labour with Azalea, my little baby, and just started with some mild sort of niggles and surges at about 2 a.m. And it was just our little secret. Like I just was really excited, but didn't want to do what I did last time and wear myself out. Being so excited.
Sounds like she remembers.
Yeah, I think she would. Yeah. And so it was just our little secret. I was just in bed and just feeling the surges come and go. They were very mild at that time. I remember it was a nice night, and I was just looking out our window, and but I still got quite a good sleep that night, really, considering. And then in the morning I told my husband, and he organised for Aurora to go to daycare and then go to our cousin's house that day, where she stayed for a few nights, which was really nice. And so I told him early in the morning, and I drew the curtains and just stayed in the room and just really just was in my experience, and just laid in bed for a while. I listened to some music and some podcasts and some affirmations that I'd been listening to in pregnancy. Hey, yeah, that's what I did. And and I just it was really a joyous time of my labour. I just really enjoyed that. And it just felt so innate, and just listened to what my body needed. I spent it from about lunchtime, started picking up, and I wasn't comfortable laying down anymore. So, and at that time also, our cousins had come and picked Aurora up, and so I knew she was safe. I'd had a bite to eat that Adam had made me. Adam was pretty much finished setting up the pool space, so I felt that everything was where it needed to be. It felt safe. And also my midwife did pop around because we were due for our appointment. So she popped around, and that was lovely to see her and just get that bit of support in the morning. But yeah, from about lunchtime, started to pick up, started to need to moan through the sensations. And I spent a lot of time just with my knees on the floor and my I've got quite a low bed, so like my upper chest on the bed, and just really swaying my hips when the surges came. And yeah, it seems like it was so quick. The day went so quick, and then all of a sudden it was 5 o'clock, and I started to think, I would really like Georgina to be here, but is it too early to call a midwife? That thinking came up, but yeah, it was definitely the perfect time to call her.
When she came early in the day, did she check you or anything like that, or was she just watching you?
She came and no, didn't check me or anything. We just had a chat for half an hour while my body was working. Yeah, no checks or anything.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really nice to see her. But yeah, it was also, I sort of just wanted to be insular as well at that time. So she left and then come back at about, I think it was about 6 o'clock when she got here. And I just remember her coming in, and I was naked with my knees on the floor and my chest on the bed, and she was like, "Oh, love, your body's working so hard." And I just remember her saying that because it just felt so comforting, and it was just beautiful to have her there. And so she just started setting up her space, the space, but with things that she might need, and me pretty much to be for a bit. But it wasn't long after that I come out to the birth pool, which was in the lounge room, which my husband had set up beautifully with sheets around, so it was like a little cave and some lights and all that, none of which I sort of recognized at the moment. Just photos looking back, and I had the affirmations up that I wanted, that I didn't look at once in my life.
But they were there.
And so hopped in the birth pool, and it was amazing. It was so good.
Good.
It just took that weight away, and just the feeling of the warmth on your body and the weightlessness just helped me really get into my body for a few more hours. And just sat cross-legged for a long time in there with my upper body on the top of the pool. And just Adam and Georgina were just doing their thing around the place, bringing me water, coconut water when I needed it. But I just really felt to be, I had my eyes closed a lot, and I was just focusing on relaxing my jaw and relax my jaw, relax my cervix. That's just what I had in my head. And and then after a little while in there, it started to it was getting close to that transition time, which I didn't realize at the time. Well, I did realize, but I had this protective mindset where I didn't want to believe it, because, I was, although I did a lot of work in pregnancy and felt really like a trusted birth. Hey, Bubba. Definitely when that transition time come around, it was really hard, and a lot of things come up for me in that. So I just started thinking, will the baby fit through? I started thinking, just like, what if the baby can't fit through? What if I can't do this? What if I can't handle this? All those feelings were coming up, and thoughts, and I just voiced them. I just said, I'm feeling really scared, and I just started telling Georgina what I was feeling, and Adam, it just to be able to voice them, and was really powerful in itself. Maybe not at the time, but looking back, like being able to voice my fears, and then just for them to witness my, the most vulnerable time, and just to come through that. and it was just beautiful to come from that. But at that time I started getting a little bit like feeling a little bit like pushing, but definitely not pushing yet. And then I started getting these like intense feelings in my hips, and it was so intense. And so it was really quite overwhelming me for a little bit. And my midwife just encouraged me to have a feel if I could feel the baby's head. And I had a little feel, and I didn't really know what I was feeling for. I could definitely feel the head, but I didn't know at the time. And then what happened? I'm just trying to think. Yeah, it was so different to what I expected it to feel like, the head. But yeah, I think so after that, I got out of the pool for a little bit, which I knew, and because I'd read so many birth stories, and I knew that a lot of people said that it's good to get out at that time. And I just definitely didn't want to get out of the pool though, but it was definitely the right thing to do. We got out of the pool and walked down the hallway, tried to sit on the toilet, and that was the most intense time. And then tried to do a side lying release on the bed, and yeah, mentally it was really hard, even though it wasn't that long in time when I look back at it. And I asked my midwife to check me because I felt that I just needed to know what was going on. And she was hesitant because, very hands off. And, if you had asked me before I had her, I would have said no checks, but it felt so right to do that. So she sat on the bed. She had a very quick feel inside, and she pretty much just was surprised and was like, oh yes, everything's happening. So then she went out and got and texted the second midwife to come because everything was moving along. And
did she tell you how many centimeters you were?
No, it wasn't. No. It wasn't really talk of centimeters or anything. She just kind of, I think from her reaction, I just felt reassured that everything was moving along. She probably said something, but I can't remember. And but it wouldn't have been in terms of centimeters. Wasn't the way that she spoke.
Just a positive reaction, which is what you were looking for.
Yes. So that just felt so right for me, and it really, from that point, I just started. I think transition was sort of coming to an end, and it was starting to move forward, and it just felt. I was just like, I started thinking, oh my God, I'm actually going to do this. And so we got through that transition stage, yay. And we walked back down the hall, and Adam helped me, and we swayed, and it was really nice. Adam says that was his favorite time because he felt a bit involved. And I got back into the pool, and I got back into the pool, which was amazing. And then I just started pushing as soon as I got back into the pool. I don't know if that's true or not. There might have been, a bit, half an hour or so where I was still having those transitional surges. But just started, my body just took over and just started pushing this baby out. And it was so amazing. And I still didn't believe it though. Still didn't believe it. I was still in that protective mind. My body just started pushing. I just had no control over it. It just, I would just have these massive urge to, just this massive surge, and just two like urges to push with each surge. And and it was such a different feel, like it had got to this point, I was the most open that I'd ever be in transition, emotionally as well as physically. And and then it was just kind of this, I could really feel that surge of adrenaline, that the baby's coming, and all that. And Georgina encouraged me to feel again for the baby's head, and I said, no, I still can't feel the head. And then and then I felt again, and I pinched a little bit, and I could feel her hair, and then that's when I knew that I was going to push her out, and that's when I just believed it fully. And yeah, it was so beautiful. But I just, feeling her head in there, I'd imagined that so many times in my pregnancy, pushing the baby out and feeling her head there. But for me, I just imagined feeling the head as a skull, like a really shiny, hard ball, but it was so leathery and puckered and, gorgeous. And so that's why it took me so long to actually realize that was the head I was feeling. But yeah, when I felt the hair, it was so emotional. And yeah, I just kept pushing and pushing. And it was only about an hour that I spent pushing. And at some point during that hour, Mayette turned up. I remember just seeing her at the start of the bath and just saying hi. And I don't know, that's a funny memory that I have. And then when my baby was almost at my vaginal opening, I asked Adam if he wanted to feel down there in between surges, and yeah, he had a feel, and he could feel the head just there, which was beautiful. And I was sitting sort of with my knees on the bottom of the pool and with my body up on the edge of the pool. And then it was coming to that stage, and I started thinking about the ring of fire that everybody talks about. And for me, it was just kind of numb down there. I didn't really feel that ring of fire, and she wasn't there for a long time either. It sort of happened pretty quick. And also, so I had an urge to push, and half of her had come out, and I felt a crunch, and I tore my labia tore and my perineum tore. So then a little bit of blood in the water. And then on the same surge, on the second urge to push, her body just shot out. And there she was. And I just sort of went back and just pulled her up out of the water. And she was crying straight away. And it was just so beautiful to see her. She was so purple and just covered. She wasn't visibly covered in vernix, but she was just so slimy and just so wet, and just her little arms were moving around, and it was just amazing. And then I just held her on my chest, and and I was just in the pool, and my midwives helped me sit back onto the little ledge in the pool, and we just looked at her, and it was amazing. Crying, and
Did you know what you were having?
No, we didn't. And that's right. And initially, it's really funny. Initially, I saw her face, and one of my first thoughts was, it's a boy. And then it wasn't. And I looked at her, and it was a girl. And I was so happy to have another little girl for my first baby. And after that, sorry, were you going to ask something?
I was going to say, what I think people like to hear also what sizes babies are.
Oh, yeah.
What was your first one, and what was your second one, weight-wise?
My first baby was, she was 3.89 kilograms. I think that's pounds. And she had a head circumference of 37 centimeters, and she was 50 centimeters long. And this baby was, how heavy were you, Azalea? You were 3.59 kilograms. And she was 55 centimeters long, and she had a head circumference of 35 and a half centimeters. Yeah. And
how did your healing go with your tear? What sort of tear did you end up with?
Yeah, so the healing, the perineum healed really well. I didn't get any sutures in that.
Good.
I got a couple of sutures in my labia because it was torn quite badly out past my clitoris.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few tap stitches. It didn't heal that well. It sort of come apart a little bit. We're not really sure why that happened, but it was definitely a little grieving process when it happened, and I was kind of looking at it every day and like, oh my god, what's happened down there? So that was what it is, but now it's painless and it's fine now.
And you're 3 months postpartum now?
Yeah, post 3 months, yeah.
Yeah. And how are you feeling about your birth now, and how are you feeling altogether with everything?
Yeah. I feel like my birth was just amazing, and I was just on I dreamt about it for so long, and it was very raw though, you know. I remember thinking, you know, after the birth, like that was really intense, and that was hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But it was amazing, and I think that's important because, you know, I think with, you know, Facebook photos and stuff, like it's just hard to make it real when you're looking at a photo. And it's just, you know, it's so intense, and it's so real, and it's so raw, and it's so beautiful, and it's all those things. And I love seeing peaceful birth. Not that my birth wasn't peaceful, but I love seeing, you know, births where it's just really, you know, calm, like really calm, and the woman's just pushing this baby out. But that wasn't really my experience. Like there was a lot of noise going on in my birth, and I think there was a part of me afterwards that thought, I just had to think about the things that I valued around birth, and realize that, you know, birth is like it. You know, I was so raw and so vulnerable, and I just, you know, I expressed everything I needed to express in that moment. And that helped me get through, and I'm really proud of myself for that, even though it probably wouldn't look as peaceful as somebody.
I think it's an interesting point that you make, because I've heard of women, you know, I've watched women and they're completely roaring throughout the birth, but then when they watch the video back, they're like, I've seen them talk and they're like, I didn't feel that way when it actually felt pleasurable. Like, this is one woman's story, but to me it was like, oh my god, this is like full on. But for her, she felt really like it was pleasurable, it was really enjoyable. And I think that women who are birthing calm, unless you really speak to them and ask them like how they felt in that moment, you wouldn't really understand what was going on. And like, everyone has such a different experience, like the fear that goes on, what are they thinking, you know, how are they feeling? And I think that's the really important thing that I want to get out on this podcast as well, because a lot of women who are listening, you know, won't have had a vaginal birth before. And I think it's really important to share how different birth can be, and how intense it can be, and how it can be fearful, even though you have support or you've done a lot of work. And that, you know, you could have a birth today and then go on to have another birth, and they could be completely different births. Like, one could be really calm and peaceful and so easy, and another one could be, you know, really intense and really scary. And this is, you know, from what I've heard from other women. So I think your birth was, you know, perfect the way it was, you know. And I mean, I wasn't there, but from what you've said and from how you've described it, it was the way that it was meant to be. Yeah, absolutely. And what you said is so true. And it's I love how my birth was, and I love that. And it was beautiful. And I just what did I say? I just, you know, when I did that, I just thought, and, you know, not just did that, like I, you know, went through that learning process, and that, you know, rediscovering and just relishing in my body's ability to know, and to, you know, and just knowing that I was the best person, the most knowledgeable person about my own body. And just to reclaim that is just so powerful in my life and for my birth. And I'm just so grateful I've had that experience, and can hopefully, and will share that with my girls. And
yeah, it was just amazing.
It's a beautiful gift that you gave yourself and your daughter, and also that was given to you by your midwife, because not all midwives, not all home birth midwives are the same.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I hear stories as well, you know, but it's very intervention based. There's a lot of checking and things. So it is really important to, you know, when anyone's going to check, you know, midwives, it's important to find out, you know, through the grapevine, usually you can hear from other home birthers, you know, which one's going to suit you and your temperament and who you feel is going to be most aligned. And it feels like you found someone, because you didn't want any sort of checks or anything, you found someone who was perfect for you and your temperament, and really respectful, you know, of your choices, which, you know, really worked in your benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so, so true. It's just so important to meet your midwives and before you're in labor. Yeah, just so that you can know, you know, like, so you can just really trust them and they know who you are. And yeah, and then, you know, you're not meeting somebody in labor. But yeah, it was, you know, just everything about it. And the aftercare, you know, once I'd had Azalea, like we got out of the pool and I had the placenta, and then they tucked us up in bed, and Mayette and Georgina rubbed oils into my feet and into my belly.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Post, I know, and you know, and I got to, you know, the baby was still attached to the placenta, which was just so beautiful to see that intact. And I didn't even see my placenta with my first baby, and that was a big thing for me. I wanted to see my placenta, and yeah, so I saw my placenta, and we did cut it that night. Adam cut it once the placenta had been born as well, and I ended up Georgina prepared. She put it in the fridge, and then the next day she come back and prepared the placenta, and I've still got half in my freezer. I'm going to bury that at some point, but she cut up the rest of the placenta into small pieces, which I had in smoothies for about 6 weeks after I had the baby. You
just had little chunks that you had frozen that you popped in your smoothie.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, she made me that first placenta smoothie on that first day postpartum, and yeah, that was amazing. Like, I loved eating my placenta. I even considered defrosting the other half. I didn't do that, but and it really helped. I had a bit of low iron, and it, you know, I did take supplements as well, but I feel the placenta really helped me regain my strength after the birth. So that was really beautiful as well.
And how did you feel with your first postpartum versus your second postpartum, with emotional and physical healing and also bonding with babies and breastfeeding situations? Did you find a big difference between the two?
Definitely a massive difference. This time, it's almost like everyone says, oh, you'll be so much more relaxed the second time, which, I mean, relaxed, but I don't, they say, oh, you won't think about things as much the second time. But I just thought about everything so much the second time, because I didn't give any thought to it the first time, and it didn't go how I wanted it to. Even with my postpartum, and that really helped me in pregnancy to prepare for the postpartum, because it took my mind off thinking about the birth. And as much, I mean, that kind of contradicts what I just said, because, you know, my first birth, I didn't think about it too much, and that was my downfall. I needed, at this time, I thought about it so much and thought about all my fears and all those things.
But once you were ready and felt like you were, you know, ready for the birth, you were able to switch off and then go into postpartum planning mode. Yeah,
really, in that third trimester, I just, you know, stocked our cupboards, which was very handy for COVID as well. And like had a freezers full of meals. Beautiful friends made meals as well. And it's really planned. It just felt like something concrete. I could be like, okay, you know, birth's going to happen, and then I'm going to have a baby, which is something you kind of don't think about sometimes. And so I had 3 weeks in bed.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I just found I had so much I had so much more strength and emotional time to give to my toddler because I wasn't physically up and being tired that way.
Mm-hmm.
Napped in bed, and I had Adam here. I had my mum come up a bit later, and she helped with Aurora, and Aurora was also in daycare a few days. So it was really peaceful, and I stayed in bed 3 weeks, and Adam just worked so hard and brought me so much nourishing food and smoothies, and we just, me and Azalea just chilled out in bed, and breastfeeding went awesome. Didn't have much of an issue with breastfeeding last time either, which I'm grateful for, because that would be really hard, and I know it is definitely a thing after a traumatic birth. But yeah, for us that was okay. And this time just had her in bed with me, and it was really nice. It was really nice.
Oh, lovely.
But yeah, the first time, it was definitely, this time I was in a lot of pain. I actually, you have so many drugs when you have a cesarean.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like it was definitely a lot of pain this time. The afterbirth pains, and then the tearing as well took a little while. But after about 3 weeks, I felt pretty good, pain-wise. But yeah, the first time, it was hard. It was just, and just being a first-time mom as well was, I think while that first 6 weeks was okay because I was still in denial. I thought, okay, that must have just had to happen. It was when I started doing the research and just, that was when the real emotions come out for me. Yeah.
When you found that there could have been a different way if you'd been supported in a different way.
Yeah. I had a lot of blame on myself for research, and just a lot of anger at the system and what women go through, which is still there. Oh my gosh, I don't know how I'll get through that anger. It's just how
well, I'm so glad that you had such a wonderful, empowering, supported, loving second pregnancy and birth and postpartum. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
That's okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention what they said in my what the cause was of my cesarean was. It was just, they just writ failure to progress. They also writ CPD in there as well, but it was very vague.
CPD?
Cephalopelvic disproportion.
Oh, okay.
It's like when they tell you that your hips are too small to have your baby.
Okay, so you were told that your pelvis was too small.
Yeah.
And then if you'd gone back and had, a birth with the same people the second time around, how do you think that would have gone?
I don't believe that I could have had I don't think that I could have had a vaginal birth in a hospital. It just isn't. Yeah, I don't know. I know that's wrong, because some people really just don't have the option to have a home birth, and you just need, I think, having a doula or somebody there to really support you in those vulnerable moments, to get you through them. It's just, you just have to fight, and it's just not what you feel like doing when you're in labour.
The complete opposite of, what a natural birth, needs, really, isn't it? The wrong kind of hormones.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of whether women can have vaginal births in hospital. It's just a matter of, if you feel how you would have felt it would have happened for you personally after your experience. Because women do have vaginal births after induction, after Pitocin, after, women do achieve all these wonderful things. But
women
under all the different circumstances, women can achieve so many different things. And then for some women, they're not given the chance, or they're not, it's just you're on the clock and you're a VBAC, and, And, if you're going to have a longer birth, like you had a longer birth, instead of the check, possibly where your midwife said, oh, that's really good, they might have said, oh, you're stuck at 8 centimeters. That's as good as it's going to get,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been really hard emotionally.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you had an empowering, confident and happy birth this time. I know you're only 3 months postpartum, so you'll still be processing this for a long time, forever. Obviously, it's a beautiful experience to remember. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, April.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to the VBAC Home Birth Stories podcast. I hope that this episode has helped you take another step to finding your voice and confidence in your VBAC journey. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help more women to find out more about VBAC home birth, just like you. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at the Motherhood Circle. See you next week. Hey, me again. I just wanted to let you know that I've just created a brand new Facebook group called VBAC Home Birth Support Group, where you can connect with other like-minded mothers who are looking to have a VBAC home birth as well. You can find the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you there.